Hello everyone, and welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park for the penultimate race of our 2017 Mopar Superbike Championship Series. I'm your series announcer, Frank Wood. Today's race coverage is brought to you by Dalton Timmis Insurance, Motovan, Honda, Magneti Marelli offered by Mopar, and Dunlop.
Big field here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park for our doubleheader weekend at the old Mosport venue, and everybody's nerves are pretty tight right now. Ready to go off those tire warmers and head out for one warm-up lap with those Dunlop slicks. And Bodie Eadie is clearly a man on a mission because he left in haste. Most people are a little more conservative because you don't want to overheat those tires either.
Seen him do that before, Colin. I couldn't help but think there was a psychological thing, you know, like he gets off the line real quick in the sighting lap as if to say, follow me.
Well, I think psychological elements play out throughout the race. The question is which ones work and how hard do you want to be on your competition. Of course, when you line up, there's nowhere to hide, right? All you've got is your lap times and your racecraft, and I think Eadie has shown lots of racecraft, but so far this weekend at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, the lap times have been most impressive. Zoke set a new lap record. Samuel Trepagnier has now become a potential podium guy. Never been on the podium in his second year as a pro, and after his performance where he and Zoke really set the pace in Dalton Timmis Insurance Super Pole, you've got to think that we're looking at some kind of a showdown or at least an introduction for Mr. Trepagnier.
Well, Trepagnier breaking last year's lap record as well, finishing second to Zoke on this day. And Zoke wasn't too happy about that qualifying effort, Colin. I don't know if you want to talk about that very much, but Trepagnier was following him around, and our champion was not too pleased being studied that closely.
So we have three BMWs on the front row with a Yamaha. Probably everybody in the first seven can look at this as a chance to succeed because slipstreaming is so important. So it's seven guys with very similar lap times as Eadie wins the warm-up lap, which means his tires will be sitting there cooling longer than anyone else's. But I think another thing we, of course, got to talk about, it's easy to be excited about Trepagnier and Eadie, but Jordan Zoke is likely to clinch a championship if this race goes well. He's been in this position at this track before, and typically when you think, oh, he'll just be a little bit careful, he usually goes for it, wins the race, wins the title, and demonstrates that he is the top dog in our series.
Well, I remember when he rode for Canadian Kawasaki Motors, there were several instances where he had to cruise around in the top 10, and he would do that, you know, running around the seventh spot, and it was kind of unnerving. Let's get ready for this race. After qualifying yesterday, the whole field is very, very excited. Some really great qualifying efforts. We talked a lot about Trepagnier and Zoke, but just about the entire field saw improvements on their personal paces. So the riders now are under starters orders. Fred Benjamin from CSBK holding them in place. And CSBK officials, of course, will be at trackside watching each and every row of this 30-bike Superbike field to make sure that we don't have any jump starts.
So worth mentioning that Trevor Daly has returned to the series after a year off with an ex-Milson Kawasaki, the bike that Brett McCormick's been riding for most of the last year in testing but not racing. And we are missing Frank Trombino, whose injuries from Shubenacadie turned out to be a little worse than we thought. Frank is here, but he can't ride. So definitely one front runner missing, but another rejoining the series, and Daly looking good on that Kawasaki.
Okay, let's go to the Rider's Choice starting lights, and we'll have a look here. The lights will come on, of course, and the riders focusing on them, virtually looking for the filaments to cool down and go off. The lights have gone off. They sprint off into turn one. It looks like Bodie Eadie might have gotten to, oh, look who's in the race lead.
Jordan Zoke takes the point, and this, of course, is a big fear of everyone's. If Zoke can get clear, which is tough to do here, he typically does, and really since Grand Bend race 2 of the series, Zoke has been the man at the point almost always.
Yeah, he seemed to learn a lesson from that one, although you wouldn't have thought he would have to learn a lesson, but late in that race, while he was running third, we had a mishap, and that's how Eadie ended up with the race. Lynn, looking back now at Samuel Trepagnier on this lap number 1. Here we go down turn number 4, and Trepagnier running in second, running very wide there, leaving an opportunity for Bodie Eadie, but Eadie just a little bit too far back rather than capitalize on that.
And right behind there, Reedman was 5th initially, but he moved past Young on the entrance to 3, so Reedman and Young are in the mix as we expect for the last couple of seasons. That's how that's played out. So we're looking at the normal suspects up front.
Yeah. See, I don't know if you saw that. Zoke pilling the front wheel on that BMW, and now Trepagnier. No, Reedman has gone past. Reedman has gone past Bodie Eadie, and Trepagnier now has passed Zoke. We got a double trouble there.
Wasn't completely sure that Trepanier had passed Zoke, and that was a bit of a Hail Mary for the first lap. But what's interesting here, this is going to be the first lap in the book for Trepanier to lead a Superbike race. Another big milestone, and here we go on board looking backwards from the leading BMW Zoke and Trepanier's BMW. He just goes a little deeper on the brakes, then he gets up beside Zoke on the entrance to turn 8. This is considerable speed and some ambition, but what gets interesting here is what happens in turn 9, because it's not clear, and by now in our replay, Zoke would know what's going on, and I think to a certain degree Zoke let him in. It's the first lap, but really ambitious move. We have seen Riedman and last year's Cordy on the Aprilia pull these kinds of maneuvers. Don't usually expect to see them on the first lap.
No, very, very tight line going into 10, and that could have caused him problems. Fortunately, Samuel Trepanier got through there okay, and he is now leading a Canadian Superbike National Championship race, Colin.
So now we're working, I guess the next milestone would be a podium place, I think, Frank, on board with Edie here. Win. And Edie is now behind Riedman, so he is working the draft, and I'm sure Riedman's looking up front. For the last 2 seasons, he has been part of the battle for the lead, for the win here at Mosport, and he wants to stay there, doesn't want to get scrubbed off in the draft.
We were riding with Bodie there just for a moment, the wonder kid from Warm, and as I've started calling him, boy, he has put in some wonderful performances here on the Canadian Tour this year, and he has set himself up in a pretty gall-darn good position here in the penultimate round, Colin, to perhaps pull one off for Yamaha.
Well, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with your language, Frank, but I do agree with you. That's how things are playing out. I think Leon is still in the mix. He's part of that lead draft. I think Jeff Williams is in there too. So they haven't spread out by any means yet. And of course, the great thing at Mosport, if you can be close at Moss Corner, you can usually rejoin the lead group, working the slipstream with all those bikes moving that air as they climb the hill. So yeah, you can see there's 8 or 9 bikes.
Leon right in behind.
Still,
Young.
People think that people who realistically can have a shot at this, depending on how the math plays out. Let's look at our top times, and there you can see Trepanier is setting quite the blistering pace, and this is real pace. We saw it in practice, we saw it in qualifying, and he is now a bona fide contender for the win. And of course, no experience leading a Superbike race, but he seems quite calm at the front. Now looking back from Edie, and there's a whole bunch of Michael Leon right on his tail, and we know Leon's BMW is fast.
Leon very colorful in the Royal Distributing BMW. Unfortunately, we've talked about this a couple of times, how similar he is to Ben Young and how sometimes we can get caught out identifying those riders on track. And it's ironic because nice move by Riedman. He moves right on the inside of Bodie Edie. Now, has he captured that position? Let's have a look.
Right in front, you can see Edie just pulled back in behind Riedman. Then we have Leon. I think that was on board with Young. So pretty hectic at the front. And of course, that clump of guys just maybe almost a second behind Zoke, they realize that they have got to get organized or they are not going to be part of this lead discussion.
Well, Trepanier and Zoke are starting to get some distance here, and there's starting to be a 2-horse race up front. We're on board with Bodie Edie, looking at Kenny Riedman right now. But now coming down in through turn 2, there's your race leaders. Trepanier now taking the short shoot up into Quebec corner number 3, and Zoke directly behind him, albeit probably about 8 bike lengths behind.
And once again, we have those great onboard shots from the drift camera. Now we're looking backwards from our leader at Zoke and the rest of the field as we head down through turn 4. This is called the chute, and this is definitely one of the most demanding pieces of track in North America. Then you brake hard, slowest corner on the track, Moss Corner, a 2-part hairpin, and then right here, crucial to line up the wheels, be nice and smooth on the bike, smooth on the throttle, and get the maximum drive, because a good performance, a good technical effort at the bottom of the hill yields the top speed at the top of the hill, and Zoke is in the perfect spot if he wants to try the draft on Trepanier.
Well, it looked like he was going to. He pulled up there and made up some distance just coming up over the hill, but he backed off first, and Trepanier carried it in through 8.
And I think Trepanier went pretty deep there, and I have a hunch Trepanier's attitude is, I got Jordan Zoke on my tail, I better show him that I belong here, and I have the speed, the pace, the ability, and Trepanier looks solid. Zoke looks like he's thinking about it, but there's no panic now. We're a quarter of the way through, and he knows that these look at that. Trepanier's definitely wide at 1, and Zoke's going to like this.
Zoke looked like he was going to capitalize on that. I thought he might take a run at him in 2, and now he has closed the distance dramatically, and he is right there ready to pounce at it, given opportunity, and there he goes. He pulls out and makes a run at it going into turn 3. No, not by a long shot, as a matter of fact. Trepanier holds the throttle on, and he leads still coming out of turn 3 and headed to 4.
Now these guys will be playing with their electronics, trying to get the TC working the way they like. And you can see Trepagne's bike spin in the tire just a bit coming out of 3. So he's found that sweet spot. And of course, Zoke talks all the time about getting the most out of the electronics in combination with the suspension. And Zoke, we know, likes less intrusive electronics and likes to steer a lot with the throttle. So it's kind of interesting here. We have tire management. You want to have some tire at the end of the race when it's likely to be a battle. It almost always is at Mosport. But how the electronics work, and here you can see Zoke again in that perfect slipstreaming spot.
Well, that qualifying the way it went, I thought we'd have a much closer race up front. This has definitely turned into a two-horse race, and I think that's partially because of Trepagny putting the burr under his saddle and really getting out front early and going very, very fast. I mean, these guys are circulating just off qualifying time, Colin.
Well, the last few years, Zoke has been very clear that he doesn't like these multi-bike battles at Mosport, that he likes to get out ahead with 1 or 2 other guys and settle it where he can know all the moving pieces, and of course he's trying to win a championship too. So what's going on right now with Trepagny setting that rabbit pace totally suits, Jordan Zoke. He likes that, and he would really like to finish the race only with Trepagny to deal with.
He'd do well just to stay behind Trepagny and gather up those points and gather up his #1 plate at the end of this race. But you know better than I what these racers are like, and you know Jordan for years, of course, and whether he'll settle for second, well, remains to be seen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Jordan settles these days, and before with a lot of factory bikes and different bonus system and a lot of different moving parts to how you made money in the series, I think Zoke sometimes would play it conservative, but here he wants the money for the win as well as everything else.
Yeah, as I commented earlier, when he plays it conservative, it can be pretty nerve-wracking. He is all over Trepagny right now and still lifting the front wheel, Colin, halfway up the Mario Andretti straightaway.
Yeah, Zoke had a refreshed engine for this round, and it seems very fast. It registered high on the dyno, not too high, but he has been impressive the last couple of events. That bike is working really well. Interesting that John Cornwell has a hand in the suspension of both our leading BMW motorcycles.
Well, Zoke is not the only one who would have, and I use this phrase because a lot of teams use it, a Mosport motor, especially a special high-powered motor, particularly for this venue.
But it's interesting, we've seen people build Mosport motors. We've seen people have immediate failures with their special engines. We've seen people put stock engines in and do really well. Certainly in a general sense, Kawasaki has always been strong here.
Caught me out again. It's twice now Zoke has taken a run from 2 up into the inside line on 3, and I don't know whether it's Trepagny's speed or Zoke backing off, but either way, Trepagny holds the lead. Zoke in second. Here we go down through turn number 4, down into Moss's. Let's see whether Zoke's got something in Moss's. No, he's going to stay behind him.
Yeah, I think Zoke always is an opportunistic passer. If you make even the slightest mistake, he's going to jump on it. That's just his philosophy of racing. And again, what he wants to do is keep this thing moving forward. If he can push Trepagny, but they don't battle, then they don't lose time. But look at that. Yeah. Ben Young has not only moved up to 3rd, but Ben Young looks like he's pulled away from that battle. If he's coming into the slipstream, if he can bridge that gap, you were talking about this being a 2-horse race. We're early. Those guys behind, if they get organized, could rejoin this. But we saw a few years ago Bodie Eadie get scrubbed out of the lead group, rejoin the lead group, and win the race.
Yeah, and I think Bodie during that race, as memory serves me, he was sitting back in like about 5th place or so going into the last lap. But that was then. This is now. Samuel Trepagny on the Blisk Racing BMW, leading Jordan Zoke here, the 11-time Superbike champion of Canada, the winningest Superbike champion in all of our Canadian road racing history, and he's on the move. Or has he caught me out again?
I feel like that we saw with Card and Kazas in the sport bike race, the Liqui Moly Championship round, that there was a pass there every lap, and Zoke is looking for it. And if Trepagny bobbles just a bit, there is a pass. But so far, no bobble, and I think we have to call out Trepagny. His first time leading a race with tremendous pressure from the most successful racer in the history of the championship, and he's doing a great job. Now, his lines aren't the most consistent, but we found since Claudio Corti came last year with the Aprilia, suddenly people are improvising and discovering there are other ways to attack some of these turns, and even if things don't go great, you don't lose so much time. And here, once again, Zoke looked, but Trepagny just drives it in off the back straight. He is aggressive, but Young has made the bridge.
And so is Kenny. Speedman's on the move as well.
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to have a 4-bike race at this point, and here's a classic situation at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Even though the pace is so good at the front, a little bit of smart drafting, you stop racing each other, you work towards the front, and as we come up on our lap times, the first time I'm going to look at is Ben Young. Look at that at 21.6. So he is right there. Zoke is not in the 21s yet. Trepagny just barely in, and Trepagny's pace, you can't argue. You don't have to have the absolute best laps if you're leading and not making mistakes.
Best lap there was Riedman, by the way, just by a tad. Here we now pick up on our racers as they head once more through 3 and down and into 4. And Zoke, I'm sure Zoke could have passed Trepagny in 3. It looked like he had the inside line, and he just decided not to do it. And I think Zoke learned a lot from Trepagny in that qualifying, and that is not to show him too much.
Well, I think Zoke wasn't happy to the degree to which Trepagny hung in around with him. Of course, you can't control that on the racetrack. But at the end of this lap, Zoke's going to see his pit board. He's not going to like that the gap's so close.
Oh, this is for real. This time, he's got right by him. Zoke has gotten right by him.
So Zoke got the drive there, and
here comes
Trepagny's going to try the outside.
Back again. He passes on the outside going into 8. This is great stuff. Trepagny punches back.
And I think that's really Zoke isn't willing to show Trepagny what he's got in turn 8. Good for Samuel that he is showing this much pace, and he is in a situation where every lap really strengthens his reputation in the series.
Yeah.
But Zoke is not playing his cards face up. And let's go and see a replay of that moment. So here you can see Zoke fairly early, and I think for the first time he's let us know what his bike is capable of. And he pulls out fairly early. It's a nice clean pass. It's up the inside, so that puts all the pressure on Trepagny. It's going to be a pass around the outside, and that's difficult to do. But Trepagny has been running it deep right here into turn 8, and he has been comfortable on that wide line. He's had some oddball racing lines into turn 9 to make it all work, but Trepagny that time just carved right back over. And I think, to be fair, Zoke was just probing a little bit. He probably isn't upset, but Young and Riedman are even closer.
To me, Trepagny spoke volumes with that pass. That was a very, very important pass because it reaffirmed himself, internally, that he's got the stuff to get the job done, and it also showed Zoke that he is here to do business.
So Zoke has won at this track 12 times, and he's sometimes won races where in the last lap he didn't look like he had a shot at all. So I would not underestimate the bag of tricks that Jordan Zoke has at his disposal. And one of the things we know about Zoke is he never shows ultimately what he's capable of until the last lap. And I think, Riedman, who has been impressive here in the last couple of years, at times has maybe showed Zoke a little too much, and Trepagny may be doing that now.
First 4 heading down into turn number 1 right now. Running back in 5th spot right now is the Parts Canada, Yamaha Canada sponsored Bodie Eadie. Looking at turn 2, Zoke looks to the inside. He actually had the pass done there going in, Colin, and Trepagny returned the favor very quickly at the top of the hill.
Yeah, I think that inside pass is sketchy because of a bump at the top of the hill. And, there's a little more room to pick a line at the bottom, but we've had some things go wrong down there lately. And here you can see a replay. Trepagny squaring up the turn. Now, watch Zoke on the throttle here. He is really aggressive. Watch the bike pick up the wheel on the gear shift. So you're right here, Frank. It looks like maybe there's a pass, but he's very tight. So you got to like Trepagny's line better. You can see Zoke's just a little bit careful there. Because of that bump.
Down through 2 in slow motion. Now we're on board and back up to speed once more with on board with Jordan Zoke, and coming up on a slower rider there on the back straightaway. Just one rider, they'll get past this problem very, very quickly, and they've done so. Trepagny first, then Zoke. However, Riedman now coming up on that rider. He's getting around him okay. Is Young in trouble? Riedman taking the inside line, going in. No, Young's following right through.
On board with Young, and that was smart. The door was open just enough, so Riedman and Young a little bit brave there, but if you're going to stay with the leaders, and they have lost just a wee bit of time there, you need to be on top of that all the way, and lappers can always be a factor somewhere here. Of course, the lappers see the blue flag, and generally speaking, they respond well, but you never can tell, and of course, that's another part of racecraft. Trepagny's never been in a position where he's the first guy to hit the lapper before.
Good point. On board with Trepagny once more, and now from the outside of turn number 3, we watch them head off in that flat spot. A little short shoot here, a very level portion of the racetrack between 3 and 4.
Of course, Mosport is like Atlantic Motorsport Park, where we were last in Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia. There's hardly any part of this track that actually is flat, and somebody joked that this is kind of like Shuby only blown up on the photocopier, and they do have that twisty nature and working up and down the hills, and it does bring another element of what it takes to be a top pro racer. And look at this. This time Zoke's a little further back in the draft, but he seems to be closing up on Trepanier. So again, Zoke looks strong on the back straight. He hasn't played everything and didn't catch what's going on with Riedman and Young, but hopefully they are staying in the conversation.
Well, I think what the time that they lost going through 8, 9, and 10 last time around with that lapper remains in place. They didn't seem to make up a great deal of it on the back straightaway, and they most certainly 2 laps ago they were much closer than this.
So we have the 2 drafting partners, leader Trepanier, who's led most of the time with Zoke, who's our current champion, the man trying to clinch another championship, trying to win his 13th Superbike race here at this track. And then right behind, Riedman and Young, the second drafting pair, and if they work together, they should be able to join the conversation. And quick glance further back, I think Edie is 5th, but he's pretty far back at this juncture.
Well, Young at one point was up into 3rd spot, and it was actually the draft that he created that dragged Kenny Riedman into this conversation.
But I think the general consensus is Riedman's bike is just a little faster than most of the other ones, and in previous years here, Riedman has looked very good, particularly late in the race.
Well, Scott Cameron, of course, well known for building fast motors, and he's certainly put a weapon under Kenny Riedman for this weekend.
Heading up the back straight, on board with Ben Young and that BMW, and you can see just a little bit of a head shake there. No big deal, of course. All the weights at the back of the motorcycle, trying to make sure that that tire, that big Dunlop slick, has maximum traction to get all of that 190-ish horsepower onto the ground.
We're at the end of the back straightaway. Trepanier has a huge lead right now, Colin. I got a sneaking suspicion this kid is going for a ride.
I think Zoke had a little bit of a problem there and lost some time, so Jordan knows what it takes now. You need to reorganize, and you need to not make some mistakes at all. Like, you got to push it, but you've got to be consistent. And if Jordan can work the math, he can catch back up. But yeah, Trepanier won't have seen it on his board. But this, I think, is his biggest lead, well, in his career. But in this race, same thing. He's never led until this race.
Most definitely. And imagine the confidence builder it would be for people like Kenny Riedman and Ben Young to look up ahead and see that Trepanier is leaving Zoke behind, and maybe they want to pick on him next.
So we had a quick glimpse with the drift camera facing forward on Trepanier's bike, and man, that is the stuff of dreams. Here we go again. That is an empty racetrack. Nothing but clean lap after lap. It's like a track day, but flat out with your best, softest tires. And if you can string the laps together and hold off Jordan Zoke, that is one heck of an accomplishment for a guy who's never been on the podium, and right now seems to have a very good chance to take the outright victory over the winningest rider in the history of the series.
Yeah, it looks good on him. Trepanier's been working his craft. You know, he's studied hard, he's worked very, very hard, and he's starting to pull away again. This is magic in the making here for Samuel Trepanier. He didn't even make it into Super Pole, for instance, 1 year ago here, and I think his best finish so far has probably been about a 5th. Has he had a 4th yet?
No, he hasn't been on the box, and I think Zoke was using some more RPMs that time because he didn't lose very much on the trip up the hill. He's a little bit closer, and don't forget, the onboard drift camera is a bit of a wide angle, so when it starts looking like Trepanier's closer, he is a lot closer.
Gotcha.
And there's Riedman in 3rd with some pressure from Young, and they haven't given up, but they aren't making a lot of headway either.
They seem to be stalled back there in terms of distance behind the race leaders. They haven't been able to, as you commented, make it up, and it was all 3 laps ago that they lost that, and obviously not working together, or certainly not working well enough together.
So far this weekend at Mosport, there's been less sun and cooler conditions than we expect, and that can be helpful in terms of things like tire life, but it also makes the setup of the bike and the choices you make, the tires you choose, the pressures you use. Maybe you're a little too careful, maybe the bike never completely comes in the way you want it. There's a lot of difficult choices, and look at this. Young is in such a great spot to slipstream here, although Riedman was very aggressive through Moss Corner.
I was just going to comment, if Kenny and Ben can get a little bit closer to Zoke, perhaps Ben will be in the best spot of all, sitting back in 4th spot and having 3 riders up front breaking the air up.
And look at Zoke is trying Trepanier there, and again, Trepanier just ran it in really deep in 8, and I guess I may be off the case here, but I feel like one of these laps, Zoke is going to show us what he's got in 8. Maybe it's going to be the last lap.
Key thing, of course, for Trepanier is not to get over-pressured and end up on his backside at trackside and, succumb to the pressures from Canada's best superbike racer.
Watching Riedman here in 3rd spot. Now you'll have a quick look in front, and you can see there maybe the leaders are slightly further ahead. Now we're on board with the 4th place BMW of Young, and again we're waiting to see if these guys can catch up, and they're starting to run out of time. Of course, this group of sparring partners are certainly well established. A lot of this season, Edie has been in here too, and you just saw a glimpse of Edie, but he's pretty far back. I think he's alone, which makes it almost impossible to do anything.
Yeah, definitely Edie is not part of the action on this day. That's a certainty. If anything, Young and Reedman may, as we commented, be able to catch him up and make a four-horse race out of this, but right now they just seem to be pacing themselves, very patient, I might add, in that regard. As you mentioned, Colin, we are getting late in this contest, and if they're going to be up there, they need to get going now.
And Young is maybe just a little too far back for both of them to benefit. And of course, when you get really close to that guy in front, both of you can pick up time. And early in the race, Trepanier and Zoke were doing that. Now we're facing backwards from the bike of leader Trepanier, and Zoke is closer for sure as we head through the funnel, which is 8, 9, and 10. You get right into this part of the turn 10, and you better be in exactly the right spot or you are losing time.
And there is traffic ahead, so these two race leaders here, the race leader and the rider fighting against him, coming up on traffic, and it's going to happen right around turn 2. If it happens down in the valley, this could be very interesting indeed.
Now less than 4 laps to go, and we're going to see some more traffic, and Trepanier, of course, this, as I mentioned, his first experience. You can see the blue flag there, so the rider knows that the leaders are coming up.
Yeah, blue flagging really helps, and the riders were told about that, of course, at the riders' meeting. Now, I would have expected some activity from that rider that we're approaching right now to, of course, their instructions are to hold their line and let the fast guys get by.
And now that's exactly what's happening, and I don't think it had a great effect. And you could see Trepanier coming out of 3 as he was catching up, was really hard on the throttle, wanted that drive, wanted to get to that lapped rider as fast as you can, and you don't control these things, and you can't be sure how it's going to play. And sometimes it works for the guy who passes first, and sometimes after the slower rider sees the lapper, the second guy benefits because he immediately gets out of the way. So, and we probably got more of those on the horizon, and here we are on board with Young, and he is on top of Reedman as we head into turn 9.
And Reedman getting very slight slippage there between 8 and 9, that back wheel stepping out a bit. Now Ben Young has, I thought Ben Young had taken that third position away, but Kenny Reedman on the outside of turn 10, if you don't mind, repasses and moves back up into contention.
Great action there for third place, but that is not helping them get to the leaders. And, Zoke is probably back at that point where he's seeing a gap on his pit board that tells him that it's going to be between him and Trepanier. And, I can't overstate the fact that Trepanier's never been on the podium. Jordan Zoke has won more races, more championship, more everything. So we've got such a different situation here in terms of experience, but Trepanier hasn't been making certainly any big mistakes and has taken the pressure remarkably well.
Yeah, and he studied his craft. We talked about him coming up on that lap and making sure that he got there first. That's exactly the type of thing we were talking about. It's the type of thing that could catch a sophomore or even a rookie rider out. And let's remember that Trepanier finished second in the Brooklyn Cycle Racing Pro Rookie of the Year award, and he was the first one to come out of the amateur ranks.
Zoke working the draft, looking, and so far, Trepanier just drives it in, very aggressive on the brakes. So far, Zoke has not chosen to approach turn 8 in that manner, but he is much closer than he's been lately, and of course Zoke knows that we're getting pretty close to the end here.
Trepanier, but for a couple of poor line choices, has been very, very good. We've seen no mistakes, no moments that gave us great concern, and here he is now leading at speed down into turn 1. It looks like he's got a good handle on this thing.
And Zoke's posture on the bike.
See that? Holy cow, that thing just came at us like a rocket as we were sitting on board with Trepanier, and Trepanier is right on his back wheel, Colin, down in through turn 2. Look at this action. That was the first time I've seen Trepanier's bike move ontoward.
I think there's been some sliding, but I think Trepanier's a little bit surprised to see the pass there, and Jordan's been looking at getting the drive, but holy mackerel, look at this.
Where did he
come
from?
Is Bodie Edie is now joining the conversation for third, and I was sure he was completely out of the lead group.
I had written him off entirely. The last time we saw him, he was but a speck way back in behind Ben Young and Kenny Reedman, but he is not a speck any longer. He is definitely right there now, obviously, on the back wheel of Ben Young. And now he is in the perfect position to pick up the draft.
Hard to know where to look. We've got a good race for first. Trepanier's got to figure out a counter punch right away, but then an unbelievable race for third, and I can't figure out what's going on with Bodie Edie.
Trepanier around the outside. Does he get it done this time? It'll set him up perfect. No. No, I thought I seen him going for the inside of turn number 9, but he's got the inside on 10. No, goes a little bit too wide.
No, and I think Trepanier definitely lost some time there. And these guys are really, really determined. 3 guys looking, 3 young guns. Look at that, putting the power down, looking for that one podium spot. And these guys have definitely been in the wars with each other over the course of this summer.
Who wrote this script? Bodie Eadie joins the fray with 1 lap to go. So looks like Trepanier and Zoke completely in control. Now it seems that as we watch in the box there, we can see Zoke with a good 10 or 12 bike length lead. But we're on board right now with Bodie Eadie going for a great ride heading down into his turn 4, following Ben Young on the BMW, who in turn is following Kenny Speedman, Reedman on board the Kawasaki. So we got a Kawasaki, BMW, and a Yamaha down into Moss as we go.
Breaking into Moss is going to be crucial. Reedman takes a conservative line.
Oh! Bodie Eadie right into the back end. Was that truly contact between Eadie and Young?
And we go to the box out, and it looks like Zoke is safe. Trepanier's problem in turn 9 may have cost him a shot at the win. On board with Eadie on the very edge of the track, trying his hardest to hang in, and he doesn't seem to quite have it on the back straight, but Young thinks he does.
No, Eadie has not got it. It's going to be a fight between Young and Reedman as far as, Eadie may make a liar out of me yet. Meanwhile, up front, Zoke has won the race. Eadie has moved into 3rd spot. Who could have written this? Eadie has stolen. He's took it right out of their pocket. 3rd place in the national championships to Eadie, and he wasn't even in the race 2 laps ago.
Colin? Well, I don't know what's, obviously Zoke just won another championship, took his 13th win. Here's the replay on the pass. Now, what's interesting here, Zoke crouches a little more, his arms come up a little higher, and we've seen that as the tell with Jordan Zoke. But of course, Trepanier doesn't have rear view mirrors. He doesn't know what's coming. Trepanier does not look slow. He's maybe slightly wide, but look at right here, Zoke has decided to pick up those revs right to the limit on the gears, and I think Trepanier is just completely shot. And Zoke got him early enough that he could come back and get a better line in 2. Now let's go on board with Bodie Eadie in 5th place with 2 turns to go. Young is working Reedman, and it looks like he's got that pass set. But when he makes the move here, he drifts wide, and surprisingly, Reedman can't quite get back under, but Eadie absolutely can. I guarantee you right now he's going, where are they coming? What's going to happen? And Young almost got there, and at this point everybody wants to square it up for that drag race to the line, and man, like, we had some good racing.
Well, that wraps up this race, and it wraps up his 12th national championship in Mopar Canadian Superbike racing. Jordan Zoke, king of the hill, Colin.
Yeah, really, we're running out of superlatives to describe Jordan Zoke and the amount of success he's had. And of course, it's easy to say it would be nicer if we had a wider variety of winners, but look at what he did to take that win, and he battled for it. He did not need to, but he went and he did what was needed. But let's talk about Trepanier. What an amazing first podium presentation, because he battled throughout and could easily have won. Eadie, Young, and Reedman, best entertainment maybe of the season at the very end, and that best lap by Trepanier means that for the first time in 2 years, Jordan Zoke will not be on pole.
So Samuel Trepanier gets pole position for tomorrow's final race of the year. Wow.
So Zoke always wins Dalton Timmis Insurance Super Pole, but this race, when we have double headers, it's based on lap times, and Trepanier was just slightly the better. Let's go to the
that
podium.
Last lap, that was some magic, man. I can't wait to see the footage.
Yeah, thanks,
now
Frank. I got off to I got a decent start right off the hop, and I couldn't quite run the pace right away at the first couple laps. I waited a little bit, and then I made a couple mistakes. Almost came into Kenny there into 4 the 1 lap, but just kind of gathered myself at the end, and I feel really good all race long. I don't feel that fatigued, and I was just able to put the last 4 or 5 laps together and catch up on those guys. And the last lap was something I read. I thought I'd try Ben into 5 and then maybe get Kenny in the last 3, but Ben tried Kenny in 5, and then I got a little bit caught up in it, and going into 8, these guys were looking really antsy, and I just kind of waited. I thought, these guys are gonna make a move, and I'm gonna be able to capitalize, and that's exactly what happened.
Samuel, we were so excited watching on the pit wall there. People were cheering you on. You led lap after lap after lap, and then you let them get you.
How was that, guys? Yes, sir. So that was my leading for the Quebec province, and I really hope you guys enjoyed that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bel job, guys. Je vous voyais cheerer, c'était malade. Merci beaucoup pour votre support, c'est vraiment cool. Yeah, that was a terrific ride. That was the plan, you know, get away at the front. I knew Jordan will be there with me. I managed the pace a little bit. I didn't want to destroy the tire, which obviously I did, but I was kind of saving it for the last couple laps. And I should have opened back the throttle earlier, but Jordan came by. And when I got back on throttle, I don't know, I didn't have like everything together, just like Jordan did. I was catching him a bit in the here and there, did some mistakes, you know, when you got the pressure that you need to go back again, it's a different story. Tomorrow will be another story for sure. I will try to be very consistent, keep the pace there, run at the front again, and hopefully finish on the top spot.
Well done, Jordan. I truly did not expect you to win this race. We figured you'd take the championship, but you surprised us with a win. Great ride.
Yeah, I was trying to ride for the championship, even though I felt our bike was like really strong this weekend, even better than last year. We had a little bit of a front end issue right off the go. I didn't have the full confidence that I've been having all weekend, and I seen the lap times that Sam was doing, and I just thought, you know what, Jordan, be smart, stick with them, see if we can gap these guys just a little bit. And once you break the draft here, you can manage it or try to keep it about 1 or 2 or 3 seconds. And I noticed that we were slowing down a little, and the gap came down a little at one point. So I started to think, you know what, I don't want to get mixed up with a bunch of guys. I didn't know what was going on behind me, but I just assumed there was about 4 or 5 of them coming. So on the last couple laps there, I knew that Sam had got the most points for laps led. So I had a little bit of points to play with. So I thought, you know, just put your head down, get around them, and do what you can to see if you can win it. And at the very least, maybe you'll get second, you know, instead of getting mixed up with the big battle behind. And it worked out, you know. I was able to just I turned my traction control down one setting to another map that we knew would allow the tire to really spin, and I just rode it sideways all the way down 2 and all the way through 3, and just rode it a little bit old school. And it was a lot of fun the last few laps, and just so pumped to win it that way. You know, I've won a lot of championships, and I've ridden around and collected them before, and I don't like doing that. So I'm glad I got it today, so that tomorrow we can just go and race and focus on that.
Well said, ladies and gentlemen. That is your podium for the Mopar Canadian Superbike National Championship Final. And now it's time for the Canada Cup, and we're going to get George to present that one as well. And also we have John Camilleri coming up from Mopar. And first of all, we're going to give Jordan the Canada Cup. And he'll likely lay a kiss on it like he did last year. And John Camilleri has the...
Let me talk.
Let me talk, he says.
So last year, I've been very lucky to have this on my mantle for many years. And last year, I gave it to our boss at Chrysler to hold on to for the year. And I think John was jealous looking at it on his desk for the year. So I want to give this to John to put in his desk for the year, so he can rub it into to the boss.
Well done, Jordan. Most unusual when you have your race winner doing the presenting. And thank you, John Camilleri, for your all of that you've done for our series, and especially what you've done for Jordan, of course. Bodie Eady in 3rd spot, Samuel Trepanier in 2nd. Jordan Zook takes 1st and his 12th national championship #1 plate.
George Morin, our first overall Canadian Superbike champion from 1980, and our brand new overall Superbike championship from 2017. Same guy as 16 and 15. Looking at our point standings, Zook is confirmed as the champ. Riedman is solid in 2nd from Young, Eady, Trepanier, Williams, Leon, Andrew Nelson coming back on the Suzuki, Bilge, one of our rookie pros, and Doug Lawrence. Those two are battling for the Brooklyn Cycle Rookie Pro Award.
2 points difference between the two of them. On behalf of the entire CSBK crew, thanks so much for being with us today. We'll look forward to joining you again here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park tomorrow.